now that they're going to go ahead and do questions and answers, you know, anything that's like comes up. And if you can, just come up here to make sure you ask the questions.
Your mic's not on.
Okay, it is kind of, but very soft.
Hello.
Well, there you go. That's on.
So, yeah, as soon as I get back up, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to just have you guys know that that's what it is to ask your questions here. And then Isis and
Robert and Susan and
you can
Jody.
introduce them, yeah.
Jody's the director and producer. She's also the publisher of the book. And then Robert is Omi and Susan's Makushla. And Susan and Robert live in Yelm. No, I don't think it's going to be a long Q&A. I think everything's been pretty...
Susan requested a chair.
Well, Susan can sit down. And if there's more questions, then whatever.
I have something to say.
This is a time period from the 60s and 70s, and it absolutely has historical and cultural value. And it's just part of something that was happening, and there was tens of thousands of dreams happening all over America that nobody even knew about. You know, everybody thought they were like the only one.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell people
Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's so nice to be here in Yelm. It's been such a joy to work with Isis and to get to know Susan and Robert, who are also important to the film. And, you know, one of the reasons that I did the film, well, I originally found out about the Source family through the music. I had a friend who had this box set of Source family CDs that came out from this Japanese psych label. You know, the CDs were really obscure but highly collectible. And through that, I found Isis, and we did a book together through my company with Adam Parfrey right here, Process, a book on the Source family. And it was through the interviews we were doing for the book, and that I got to know so many of the family members and was very compelled by their intelligence and charm. And I have to say, when I first saw the Source family music, I was like, my friend was like, oh, this wild cult lived in LA in the 70s. And I looked at the pictures and I was like, oh, who is this kind of, you know, creepy, cool cult? It was like my own cultural brainwashing, you know, that the Source family, because they were an alternative spiritual group, they had to be creepy, you know. And I think that that's how it is for a lot of people who grew up in America and were alive in the 70s during the counter-cult backlash that corporate media kind of unleashed after, you know, Manson and Jonestown. And what was so amazing for me was getting to know these people and to understand how deep and rich and beautiful their experience was in so many ways. And I was very humbled by that and realized that there was a lot about this period, not just about the Source family, but this period of the 70s and 60s that I'd never learned. I'd learned about the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll and the music, but I'd never learned about the spiritual exploration that was going on that was really wild and radical and deep. And so that led me to embark on this project and do what we did. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Somebody better come up. Come on.
I actually have two questions. Is there a website to read up on all of this that you can furnish us? Yes, because there's an articles of clothing or such that you're still selling. Oh, wow. Because I love your outfits, ladies.
This is actually kind of
funny looking, but this is the Source family clothing that was designed by a designer in LA.
Oh, that's awesome.
These people are just seriously amazingly dressed.
I know, I've seen it. And the second thing was, some of you probably haven't seen each other for a while, is that correct?
No, we mean just us here.
Yes, yes.
Not a year ago, I think it had been where I was.
There had been a long period when the family dispersed that we really did have to establish our own identities, and there wasn't a lot of communication. And then slowly we began to get back together, and there was a lot of processing. There was a lot of emotion to be worked through among certain people. Things had gone off the rails, and resentments, and slowly, the family coalesced and healed. And so now it's a very dynamic group of people who are spread all over the world and are in communication. But interestingly, a psychic spoke to me. I went down for a job interview in Honolulu, and Father had only been dead a few months. And we felt we had to stay together and hold a vision and build this health spa. And he said, no. He said, I see a great wind coming, and it will blow you to the four corners of the earth. You will all be dispersed. That is what is meant to happen. And I was like, no, you're wrong. Well, that is what occurred. He said, the sapling will not grow in the shade of the mighty oak. He said, that is why your father left you. So, that's what happened.
Is that all? Okay, we need mic control. But we've had several reunions, and to tell you the truth, I mean, you know, it was just, a lot of it was karma, as you would find in any group. Some of us, you know, we really did live by just be kind, and even if it's social kindness. Some of us at this point don't even really like each other. You know, it's just, we were a group, and that's, you know, everything within that happened. And, but no, we definitely have reconnected, and we're pretty much all doing, you know, our own journey, which is what we, like Robert says, what we are supposed to be doing.
Hello, my name's Nadja. I'm wondering how many people here are from the 60s like me. Woohoo! I can see a few hands. 70s? Woohoo! I kind of want to invite everybody, because I used to live, well, I was without a home for 2 years, and Robert put me on his couch. And we gardened together, and he told me a lot of things about Jim Baker. So I want to ask you, what doesn't bother you anymore? What have you owned? Who are you now as a result of that? You gave me pictures of fabulous gowns and mansions and money that came from everywhere and bank robberies. But I didn't know just how this person evolved, sweeping you young people from rigid Catholic families and such things. You came to this, but now you're here with a very different kind of teacher. What have you retired into wisdom from this?
Use the mic. I don't want to block the beautiful view here for anyone. Ultimately, everyone's task here is to love themselves and accept themselves completely. And when one is young, that really is your unfinished business, and often you don't realize that it is yourself that you have the problem with. You project it on others, and you have strong opinions, and there's people you like, there's people you don't like, there's things you're ashamed of, there's things you won't admit, there's things you lie about. And I think that when I was young with him, I was extremely self-important, too sensitive, very rigid. I mean, and you know, but you can't live like that in life without really setting yourself up for a good beating and a real humbling. And that's what happened to me. I hope that you know, I'm a more tolerant person, a more patient person. And I accept myself, and my journey is magnificent. But I love my life. I'm grateful for my life, and as any of you know who've come to live in Yelm, that this was just the beginning of an adventure, and we've had an outrageous adventure here as well. So life is a gift. Life is truly beautiful. It's to be savored. You have to learn to regret nothing, to be ashamed of nothing, and give everyone else that grace, and allow them and appreciate them. Because what Jim Baker, when he said he was God, he wasn't saying he was the only God. He was living a very sophisticated paradox, because he understood that reality is a paradox. He was and he wasn't, and he knew that. He knew that it was an experiment. And he said, we are anticipating a future time when every man and every woman will know their true nature, will know that they are God. He said, I just look around, I don't see anybody else claiming it, but I'm a provocateur. And if I claim it, people will judge me, people will condemn me, but at least their minds will be open to the possibility. So it was theater, it was high theater, and he was a provocateur, and it was really a lot of fun, especially if you had a lot of money to be creative with it. So, but I think at the end of the day, everybody gets into their later years and they realize that all the drama was just the learning, just a lesson. And you know, I think, you know, I wake up and I'm kind of amazed that I know I have no drama, I have no stress, I have no concerns, I have no fears. I'm just like, everything's fine. You know, so you really, your hormones really cool down. You know, that's the most thing of old age. So, does that answer your question?
Deeply and well.
Okay, I get the impression in the documentary that when the whole Source family moved to Hawaii, that because of how things were not working, that was the time when Jim Baker started to detach or even feel like it was time to go.
Yeah.
That was really my impression, and probably you all felt that kind of collapse in the situation. And was that also a cultural change that was happening then? Like the experiment was over? And yeah, maybe you want to say something about that.
Before Susan talks, I just want to emphasize it was difficult to convey this in the film, how important Susan was as Makushla to Yahowha, Father Yod. She was with him. She was the one who was with him 24/7 from basically the time they met until he passed. And so she has a very unique position to speak about him and the family that way. And I just wanted to acknowledge that because It's hard for some people to get that. Yeah.
Thank you. I think Yahowha had, well, we all had agreed to create this experiment together. And it just went so far. And I mean, you could have only so many women. You can have so much wealth. And you could expand the way we did in consciousness. We had all these teachings. And there really was no place in the world for us to to comfortably live. And this isn't in the film, but Yahowha, 6 months before he died, he went around the world. I mean, there's only 98 minutes that Jody had to put into the film, but this is just the tip of the iceberg, what's in the film. And he did go around the world. I went with him and Damien and 4 other people, and he wanted to look for another place for the family. He was trying to find out where we fit. And we all got as far as India, and we spent 2 weeks there. And then he sent everybody back except for Damien, him and myself. And we continued on. We went to the pyramids in Egypt and had an incredible initiation there on Easter Sunday morning. Just phenomenal experience. But he was trying to figure out where we fit. And, there was a lot more than the documentary. I mean, this is truly the tip of the iceberg. But we came back, and we really we were in San Francisco, and we came back to Hawaii. And actually, there was a point where he asked me if I wanted to leave with him and go live and leave the family, and just to break the paradigm and have his women that have his children taken care of, or to have them come with us. And when he said that to me, the closest I can say is that I couldn't feed it any energy. It seemed so strange to leave the family. It just didn't seem like there was I couldn't have a response for that. And so that idea came up, and it kind of drizzled away. So he was trying to think of ways to break the family up, or just something, the next step. And there really wasn't a next step that was logically it, except for jumping off the cliff. It was sort of a natural evolution. Robert?
Yeah, I just briefly want to say that about a month before he died, we were with him in Hilo, and he said, I will have to leave my body, meaning that was our parlance for dying, but we didn't say that way. He said, I will have to leave my body if my sons are going to do all the great things that they are destined to do. And we couldn't conceive of him dying. We didn't know how he possibly could, or we didn't accept it or were able to process it, but he did predict it. And so the question came up, well, did he commit suicide? Well, no. It was like he kind of threw it up to fate, and he allowed whatever to occur. But it was time for him to go. So it wasn't a self-destructive act. It was a fateful act, and it had the outcome that it did. And so it was a very dramatic event, and really a great self-sacrifice. He put himself out of the way. And it was mythic. It was huge.
I wanted to say something about the last day, and Isis and I were there with Yahowha, with the rest of his women, and that last day when he jumped off the cliff, that was so surreal. We watched him crash land somewhere way down below. We got in the car and he raced down there,
and he had crash landed in a Hawaiian campground at 7:30 in the morning. Yahowha with a robe on, no shoes on. And when we got there, he was laying on the ground. He was totally in the light, and there was a circle of Hawaiians standing around him. And there was a police car, a fire engine, and an ambulance, and everybody was frozen. Nobody was doing anything when we got there. I mean, first responders are trained to run in and attend to the person who's sick or hurt. And I want to tell you how surreal this whole day was. It was like everyone was frozen. We got out of our car and ran to you. And he said, first thing he said was, who was that angel that guided me down? And that there was an angel that helped him land, and that he wanted the sun to hit his face. And then the Hawaiians were getting kind of antsy, and we knew we had to get him out of there. And so we picked him up and put him in the car on my lap, and we brought him back to the house. And he taught, I want to say, he taught the whole day. Sorry. People. Sorry, I've been doing this all week. I just want to say that he taught from such a strong point the whole day with such a love. And Yogi Bhajan called, and Yahowha had a chance to talk with Yogi Bhajan, and the yogi told him that he was going to be fine, and to put salt packs on. And so we did that. We had the ambulance come out twice to get him oxygen, and we gave him champagne and sacred herb and everything he asked for. We had Stanley Burroughs come out to do light therapy on him, and everybody said he was going to be fine, that he was going to be in a lot of pain, but his wounds were going to heal. And not one of us, for one moment, thought that he was going to die that day. I know that sounds crazy after watching that, but it never crossed my mind that he could die. And I just lost my train of thought, but what I wanted to tell you was just how surreal it was. We were there, we were just like breathing with him, and even when, at the very end, when he was laying down and I laid down and I was looking into his eyes, and just the time, it's like time stopped. I don't know how long it was, but it's like when the refrigerator goes off and you don't notice that it's off until you hear it coming back on again. During that time when I was looking into his eyes, I think that was when his soul left. It was like a vortex of energy where his soul left, and it was like a timeless, it was just a timeless moment. And we were all there, and just totally, it was all his women and Jupiter, and we were just in total disbelief, and yet we were still in this space of, okay, well, now we're going to take care of his body. He had told us how to prepare a body that had died, and, we did that and kept his body for 3.5 days, and I just wanted to tell you how surreal it was.
That was perfect because Makusha hasn't really had the opportunity to stand fully in who she was at that time or talked about it. I've been doing it with Jody for years, so I've basically been the point person. So, for her to be able to come back forth with it and be able to express herself is really was a blessing and healing, and thank you for being witness to that.
So
Susan, I'd like to ask you a question too. Kind of empathizing with the role that you had. I'm just imagining in your shoes, you left with some feeling of responsibility about maybe the choices Jim Baker made at the time, or about leading the Source family after that. And Robert spoke about how the wisdom he gained after a question. And I'm wondering what you see in your learning that you've experienced because of perhaps that extra pressure that was on you that you would reflect on for us.
Yeah. You mean after he died? After he died, yeah. Well, after he died, I took over into that interim point to be the head of the family. And I did the morning meetings, and it was a totally different experience than, because when Yahowha was in the body, I was just totally focused on him, and now I was totally focused on the whole family, and it was a wonderful experience, both sides of that. What did I learn from being with Yahowha?
I'm asking, what's the wisdom you have within you now that you gained from that experience that included the extra responsibility after his death? I'm assuming that gave you more to work with or more to work on?
Wow, I just really, I think it's basically staying present, and because one thing that went into the other. I felt like I had gotten a lot of, like, I felt like divine confidence from him, from being with him, and I felt like it helped me handle being the head of the family. And I also went on a tour around the country because we had this vision of a dome community. That was a very big part of what we wanted to create, and we kept up with that thought after Yahowha died. And we had sons in the family who were architects, and they created this whole layout of a dome community where the family would live, and with the children, and our whole part of it, and then where we'd have the world come to a healing center. So we went around looking for a backer for that. So really, it was just to keep going with the vision. When I look back, I mean, I'm going to say I don't in any way promote polygamy in any way, shape, or form. This was an experiment. That could only happen like that. I mean, there's no way I want to say that right off the bat. And I think it's just to engage life. Your path unfolds for you when you're aligned with, your God, and you just keep going. And I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, I think it does, and as much as I hear you saying that in that journey, it gave you the ability to be in the present and to see the choice about adventure, opening the next thing up. And certainly as I've known you over the years, I've seen you engage many adventures. So I think from that angle, it does. There was one other thing I thought about sharing today, that was that I had the experience of going to Hawaii with Robert back in 2001, does that sound right? And at that time, you saw it as the time when the Source family thought the world would be changing in September.
It was the pyramid prophecies of the beginning of the Aquarian Age. So we had projected and agreed that in the future we would meet on September 17th, 2001. What made this very dramatic is because September 11th, 2001 was the World Trade Center, and no one wanted to fly, and Hawaii was, it was a very dramatic time, but we kept our word and we had a reunion. Yeah.
So I was able to attend this and meet very interesting, unique people, for sure. But beyond that, in the course of watching and listening today, the dialogue about how Jim Baker had a desire for, as you put it, Robert, for the seeds to grow, so they had to move away from the source tree. Was that at the party for the 17th, I was sitting at a table where the picture of Jim Baker had been placed on the wall. People were up dancing, having a good time, but I watched the picture jump off the wall at 8 p.m. You know, so to me, I thought like, well, this man does not want people worshiping him. And then the next morning we went to the home of Damien and for brunch or coffee or something. And the picture at Damien's house when he got home from that party had also jumped off the wall.
And shattered.
Shattered. Yeah. Say more about that. Yeah, that's what you do.
Well, you described it very well, but when the Source family gets together, amazing phenomenon occurs. And so the way Jan described it, it was true. We had set up his photo to be with us while we heralded in the beginning of the Aquarian Age according to our prior belief. And the photo literally jumped off the pedestal and the glass shattered into 100 pieces on the floor. And one of the beautiful women there said, "Oh," she said, "look, it broke into 100 pieces." She said, "We're all Yahowha now." We're all gone. So, beautiful Damien, who you saw in the film, he went home, he walked through the dark into his hallway, and he said there was glass all under his feet. The same photo had hung in his hallway for 20 years and had never been disturbed, and it was on the ground, shattered. So, it's like Jan said, he had no desire to be worshipped. He had no desire to start a new religion. He wanted each of us to be empowered to know that God was in us and to have the fearless expression of that God. In other words, simply have confidence in yourself, be yourself, do what gives you joy. That is what being God is on this plane. And that's it.
Let me ask a question. I had a few questions actually. One is for Jody about you have 98 minutes to put a movie together, and so the first step is he has all these archives to go through, but the editing, there's a lot of editing, I'm sure, to get it to be concise. So one of the, I think the successful aspects is that it does seem like a complete story, even though, as Kushla says, it's a tip, when you look further into it. So my first question was about one thing in particular that you had to remove because it didn't fit the whole, but one thing that you wish you maybe felt like you were forcing in there and realized it had to go. And then other questions are about Robert and Susan, when you guys saw the film, what was surprising to you based on other people's perspectives? And then I guess there's one more thing where this is the third time I've seen it, and I'm noticing different things every time. So if there's anything that you noticed this time, seeing it again.
Well, I'll tell you, cutting this film down to 98 minutes was
maybe the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Like 4 hours, right?
Yeah, we had so many incredible stories, and I will say that the film that you're watching, it's so interesting. It feels like a complete story to you, because to me it feels like we're just scratching the surface of the reality of the family. There were, so many stories that were happening every day, and then the people who came into the family. Isis, before she came into the family, she was a White House social aide. She was a model. She was, she was in New York going to Andy Warhol parties. She had this very interesting past, and a lot of family members had fascinating histories on their own, and then their dynamics with each other in the family were fascinating too. So we didn't have time to explore those things. They do exist in the book to a certain degree, but there's a lot that's not in the book either. Some of the most significant things we had to cut out of the film, and when I say we, I mean me and my co-director Maria Demopoulos, who couldn't be here, but was a huge part of the film, and our editor Jen Harrington, was the fallout after Yahowha passed, because there were some really dark days, for the family after the head was kind of cut off the body. There was some difficulty, and Makushla, by all accounts, everybody we interviewed said that she did the best job she could. She did a wonderful job, but it was very difficult to keep the family together. They were out of money. There was a lot of pain. The babies, those are babies that was born undernourished, and there was a lot of stuff. Oh, and Mercury, there was another hang gliding death that we couldn't put in the story. We had it in at one point, but Mercury, who was one of Father's beloved sons, who set the world record for most hours aloft in a hang glider, he launched Yahowha, and 6 months, was it 6 months later? Yeah, Makushla has said she was interested in going hang gliding, and so he went to do a practice run, right? And
At midnight on a full moon.
yes, off the same cliff, and he crashed, and he died, and you guys held on to his body again, and there was a huge controversy. Isis got thrown in jail.
I did too.
You got thrown in jail too?
We got arrested.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. And there were the newspaper headlines everywhere. So there were just so many really dramatic moments like that we couldn't include. And hopefully we'll be able to tell that in another way, someday. That's in the book.
And there's 200 people, and each one has their own story.
We had many, many, many people, and everybody had their own reality. And that was the greatest shock to me, because I thought everybody saw everything the way I did, and we were all on the same page. And when I started finding out, literally there was 3 of his women, and we were talking one day when I was doing the book, and something came up, and I said, yeah, wasn't that awesome, the blah, blah, blah. And Harvest turns to me, and she goes, no, that's not the way it happened. And Galaxy said, no, both of you are wrong. And we looked at each other, and we went, what? And we actually had an argument until finally we went, wait a minute. Everybody's got their own reality in front of you, and everybody saw it different. And, that was probably the most amazing thing, not only to me, but most of us, was to allow everybody their space in their reality and give it to them, and it does not negate the others. Everybody's got a story. And what Jody did to even try to make anything out of it was I honor her so much, because, my God, that's all I can say.
I wanted to say something that there's a picture that comes up in the documentary that I have to say this, that when Robin is saying that Yahowha just told her that he wants to have more than one woman, what do you think? And she says, I think you're a dirty old man on a lust trip. And then there's this picture that comes up, and Yahowha's sitting there without any clothes on. He's leaned up against a bed, and I'm leaning on his shoulder, and there's women flopped out on a bed behind him, and women on the floor. Some of them don't have clothes on. And because that shot is put there, when she says that, it looks like some sort of a drugged-out orgy scene or something. And I want to say that that picture is actually a picture of a home birth in progress. there's a birth robe hanging there. You wouldn't notice it because it goes so fast, but there would never be a scene like that with that connotation of what Robin just said, of a dirty old man on a lust trip. But we had over 50 home births, and the mother giving birth always would want Yahowha to be there because he always knew how to handle every situation. So in that picture, we probably had been there maybe overnight with the mother in labor, and we were in this closed-in room, and that's why we looked so exhausted. And taking your clothes off in the family was a very natural thing. We lived 140 people all together. We had a swimming pool, and we lived in a canyon where it was very private. It was very natural to have no clothes on, especially out in the pool. No one wore a bathing suit. So I just wanted to bring attention to that picture.
I just wanted to address your question, and the thing that in viewing the film multiple times, and the first time I saw it, what I was stunned by was that anyone would have the courage and the will to take on this story that to me was so undescribable and so huge, and fashion it into a coherent and exquisitely beautiful story. I think what Jody did, I can't personally, I would never have been able to do it. The whole idea was overwhelming to me, that anybody could craft a 99-minute film with, yeah, it was. It is the most extraordinary accomplishment, and
I would very much like to acknowledge the contribution you're all making, and that you're all here sharing your experiences with us. My question, I am also a contemporary of that era, and the pattern that I observe that is consistent, or was at that time, I'm going to do my best to describe, and I'm sure you'll probably be able to follow it. It's where people allow themselves or give themselves permission to move into the unknown. And there's that process of continually pushing out boundaries. And what I've been contemplating from the time I went through that era and experienced and observed that firsthand until now, and I'm here watching this film, is how do we engage that and maintain that sort of healing or nurturing capacity to where pushing out boundaries is constructive. And
First of all, we're like, I'm in my 70s, in my being, well, I don't know, she's probably 30. But we're the old guard. You know, we were part of forerunners. We were part of a pioneering time frame that was an opening, that was a crossover. And I don't feel any need to do anything at this point. It was our journey, and we did it, and I really feel this next generation is picking it up, and they will continue it, and it'll be their journey. They'll do it in their way. And, we've got the old guard and the new guard standing side by side, which to me is amazing. You know, we see no boundaries, we see no age, we're just all there together in a new time frame, which is another opening and another spiritual avenue. And, I don't know, it's just, once you are something, you are that, and you maintain it and you hold it. And if you can inspire or encourage somebody in any way, however anything happens, you know, it becomes their journey, and it's up to everybody to maintain themselves as a complete, whole, separate being. You know, because we are in an evolutionary process to a spiritual being, and that's what the whole New Age is about.
Now, the way I heard your question is, how does one, throughout one's life, continue to be open and uninfluenced by fears of lack, fears of condemnation, fears of criticism? How does one stay present and stay open to the unknown and keep evolving through life? Did I hear that correctly? Kind of.
Without it going to our families.
Without it, yeah.
There you go. Without it being obstructed to make the unknown.
Okay. So, I think that what we all struggled with, our generation, was that we were born into a very authoritarian culture. And we rebelled, but then we often transferred that authoritarian relationship to authoritarian figures, like we did with Father to a great extent, until he was gone and we had to make our own decisions in life. So, pushing the boundaries, I think that if you honor your own knowingness, your God will always guide you, and you will not hurt another, damage another, but you also have to be ruthlessly honest, not only with yourself, but with others, and be prepared to endure the emotional storms of others when you don't do what they expect you to do. So, and that's how Yahowha got along in the family, that he was always present, but he did exactly what he wanted to do. And if it did not meet the expectations or hurt people or something, he stayed true to himself and let the storm pass. And that's often, men will cheat on women and don't tell them because they don't want to hurt their feelings. Well, that's bull. You know what I'm saying? You must be honest. And you must do what you want to do. You must be true to yourself. And a lot of times, people are going to have a lot of problems because of it. But that's their journey. I mean, you can't always be running around putting band-aids on people. So that's kind of what I get.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
When I was watching the movie, I felt like I had an extraordinary experience of getting a window into a particular area and into a particular time, and getting an understanding of that I didn't have before. I do not consider this a cult film. Some people may consider it a cult film, I won't give any examples, but I don't think it's that. I think it's an important historical film, and I think that 50 years from now, that's the way it's going to be regarded.